In this episode,
if you're doing it and you want to cut your costs, this is the way to do it, and this is the way you kind of need to do it.
Is it quite utopia where you're completely off grid? Probably not.
You can't do that with gas or oil or LPG.
It's cheaper to buy it than actually build it.
So I'd go against what those two have said.
You've now got a minefield of EV chargers that don't integrate with anything.
If I told you how many hours I put into it, you probably wouldn't believe me.
welcome back to Homeowners Q&A. I'm your host Mars, and today we're asking a big question. Is the combination of solar PV, a heat pump and battery storage the ultimate net zero setup for UK homes? To help us answer this question, we're joined by Paul Arundale, Richard Burrows from Midwell's Plumbing and Heating Supplies, and Kevin Harrison from Clavat. Welcome everybody. Before we get started, we'd like to thank Egg for sponsoring this episode. Egg is on a mission to crack clean energy because, let's face it, switching to solar, batteries or EV charging shouldn't feel like solving a riddle. With 10 years of making the hard stuff feel easy, they design, install and support homes and businesses across the UK, turning clean energy into a no-brainer. Their goal? A future where every ray of sunshine powers a simpler, smarter choice. So thank you, Egg, for helping us all switch to the sunny side stress-free. Let's crack clean energy together. So Kevin, how close does the solar battery / heat pump combination get you to being truly energy independent?
It's definitely well up there, and I think it's probably the closest you'll get to being independent without spending an awful lot of money on other bits and pieces. We try and push and promote the battery storage and the PV alongside heat pumps as well at the moment, but I just think they go hand in hand, and it's definitely the best way to try and reduce bills, reduce your carbon footprint. Is it quite utopia where you're completely off grid? Probably not, but it's probably the most cost effective way that you will be getting off grid.
Would you agree with that, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, if I tell you about my own journey, because it's always relatable, isn't it? So obviously I started off with a heat pump first. So had my heat pump, I had solar PV as well. So those two things were working quite well. What I was trying to do with my solar PV, because I didn't have battery storage at the time, and I was on the original feed-in tariff. So I was trying to use like a solar diversion product to actually divert the excess solar energy to hot water. So then the heat pump can just concentrate on doing space heating more than doing both. Typically, heat pumps are less efficient when they do domestic hot water. So I was trying to offset a lot of that, and we would just wasted it. But the second we added the battery storage to our setup, so we added, I built my own battery storage, which is just as you do. I built mine before battery storage was really a thing. So I kind of built mine in 2019. So I built my own little off-grid system, tied it into my house and the plant room that I'm in now at home. And basically 27 kilowatt hours of battery storage, which is not small, but basically I used Tesla batteries for that. So I built it out of old Model S batteries. And when we added that gives you true freedom. So that then gives you the opportunity to then pick and choose when you want to run certain appliances, pick and choose when you want to heat your hot water. And actually then it becomes more efficient then to actually have your excess energy go into your battery storage, and then pick and choose when you want to do your hot water with your heat pump. A heat pump is still more efficient than an immersion heater. So it's going to be at least, 2.5 to 3 times, maybe higher than that. I mean, I've got my own heat pump running higher than that on hot water efficiency. But, it's always going to be more efficient that if you can put that excess energy into your battery storage and then use that at a later time for your heating and hot water and your cooking and all those sort of things. And that's kind of, the best place to be when you're trying to, smarten up your home, make it more efficient, have a heat pump. It works really well. And for us, it's cut our bills here massively. So also there is a payback period as well.
There is quite a big capital investments up front though. So, I mean, Paul, you've followed a similar journey, I think, to what Richard's done. How do you justify that big capital expense at the outset though?
When you start having things like heat pumps, or if you've got an EV, you suddenly use much more electricity, and then when you're buying it, has much more of an impact. And as Richard has said, when you put battery storage, whether you with or without PV, you then got the chance to shift your consumption to when it's cost effective, or if you're environmentally motivated, to when it's lowest carbon. And the battery gives you that flexibility. And we've done much the same. As I started off without the battery and was trying to automate things to work when the solar was good. Then a cloud would come over and it would knock it off. And it never really worked that brilliantly. Putting a battery on just makes it so much easier. As Richard said, the money or the cost savings by having a battery and being able to shift your consumption to a favourable time has a massive impact on your finances when you are consuming a lot of power, especially in winter with the heat pump and the space heating requirement.
We've teamed up with Egg, one of the UK's leading home energy providers, to give one lucky homeowner the chance to win a 6-panel solar installation worth £6,281. Perfect for a typical 3-bedroom house, this system can help you slash energy bills and cut your carbon footprint. The winner can also choose to upgrade by adding more panels or a battery, with flexible payment options available. This is your chance to future-proof your home, reduce grid reliance, and embrace cleaner, greener living, completely free thanks to Egg and Renewable Heating Hub. To enter, simply visit Renewable Heating Hub, link in the description. Terms and conditions apply. Don't miss out. Get your entry in now and start your solar journey sunny side up. Good luck. I'm beginning to see that there's definitely a push amongst homeowners to try and get the various kind of renewable devices around the home communicating with one another, but that's proving to be more and more challenging. So I know that you've gone down the kind of home assistant route. What are the options to people that actually do want to, well, what advice would you give people that are actually looking at this?
I mean, the first thing is the kit you're looking at buying, does it have the ability to integrate with other things? If you haven't got the ability to control something, you can't integrate it. You can't manage the energy flows because the option's not there. So that's the first thing. Once you've got something that is manageable, it's how do you manage it? Whatever you do, you've got to manage the energy flow. So you've got a hierarchy. So there's some logic that you prioritize what is it for you, whether it's to export to the grid to make if you've got a really good export rate. Some people might put as much back onto the grid and then buy it back cheap, like we do. We don't try and use everything because it's actually cheaper for us, or financially better for us, to export as much as possible and buy it cheap. But it's hard. There isn't, as far as I know, there's nothing on the shelf that you can go and buy today that would allow a heat pump, a solar PV, and a battery, and a car charger, and maybe something else to work together without getting really geeky and get involved with something like Home Assistant and integrating your kit through a third-party software like Home Assistant.
So what have you done, Richard, to set the hierarchies? What are you using?
Yeah, same. I use Home Assistant, so I'm quite an early user of Home Assistant as well. So we were starting the code with Home Assistant back before it. I mean, it's easier now, but I mean, you know, when I started in 2019, it was quite hard to do the coding. You know, I had to learn coding to do it because I'm not a coder. I'm not from a coding background, but like Paul said, it's really, really difficult to integrate things. There isn't. I mean, a few people have tried to do it, you know, out there. I mean, My Energy have tried to do it. There's a few other companies that have tried, you know, Viessmann, they've tried to start doing like an integration. Some of the kit is very expensive, you know, so if you go for like an integrated route, you haven't got the freedom of choice either. You've got to like go with that manufacturer's kit, and it might be some items might be quite expensive, where with something like Home Assistant, you can actually pick and choose. As long as they can integrate, you can actually pick and choose and then create automations between the two. I mean, I use a sub program called Node-RED, and I do all my programming through Node-RED. And basically that makes the programming sequence, when you're not a coder, a lot easier to do. But ultimately, you're still writing the script. So you're still writing the fact that when, you know, priority one's batteries, when the batteries get up to X percentage, then you can allow something else to happen, you know, and it's that logic sequence. If I told you how many hours I put into it, you probably wouldn't believe me, but it's you know, yeah, Paul would, but it's significant time that you have to invest into this if you want a whole solution that works seamlessly, you know. And like Paul said, you know, one of the things I originally did is I was on Octopus Agile tariff originally when it first came out, and they were pretty much giving away free energy. When the tariff first came out, they were paying you to take the energy. So the way I did my batteries back then is not only did they take the solar excess, but when the grid was given the signal that, you know, they were paying you for that electricity they needed to get rid of, I was actually charging the batteries off the grid at those periods. So and I mean, that's commonplace now, but back in sort of 2019, 2020, that was brand new. That was really like a really beta product. And, you know, there was a few geeky guys. I'm not saying I'm a bit geeky. I'm not a total geek like some of the guys out there, but You know, there's some really great guys in our world, you know, like Mick Wall, he's like led sort of the field on this, and he's done very similar with his heat pump system. If you're doing it and you want to cut your costs, this is the way to do it, and this is the way you kind of need to do it.
Kevin, this technology has been around for a long time now, and it just kind of blows my mind that manufacturers haven't been kind of quicker getting off the mark to try and get things to talk to one another, so that, you know, guys like Richard and Paul don't have to sit and spend days, months out of their lives trying to code things to actually try and get everything to talk to each other. Why have manufacturers been so slow?
We like seeing their pain, if I'm honest. Yeah. We are bringing something out at the moment. We've got the control for energy, which does our batteries and our PV, heat pump, mechanical ventilation. We're bringing out a car charger to tie all that in as well. It's all Clivet product. So if you've got an existing PV system with My Energy or whatever, or Give Energy or SMA inverters, it's not going to be able to talk to those. It's something that they are all looking at. But again, it's loads of different needs for loads of different countries. So it's not, UK is very different to Germany, to France. If I tell you this, you might be surprised, but the UK paid one of the highest prices for electricity in the world. So whereas other people, they're quite happy with their electricity bills coming in, especially like in Jersey and Guernsey and stuff like that, where it's minimal. It's definitely coming more and more prevalent with all manufacturers, I think, that do multi-technologies. But as you said there, Richard, it's a minefield to set up anything for one person.
So from what you described there, Kevin, it's almost like if somebody wants to have a complete ecosystem, they need to invest in a specific brand. What I still don't understand is why there isn't a common architecture or language or some sort of communication protocol that would just allow different brands to talk to one another.
Well, from a sales point of view, it's very much you want to tie everybody into your own products. But I think going forward, I think that will be something that everybody has to look at, because you're ruling yourself out of a retrofit market. Someone wants a heat pump, they want to control everything. I think you then have to have that need to be able to integrate someone else's inverter that they've had PV in for the last 10 years. So I think that will come. As you said, manufacturers are probably a little bit behind. Some are there. And I mean, we have got some good stuff coming out.
From a manufacturer perspective, if I was a manufacturer, I'd be making a compatible integration with Home Assistant. The problem is that the more manufacturers that try and do their own hierarchy, you're losing the opportunities then of actually having the massive platform of Home Assistant buying your product and integrating into it. So it kind of, from another perspective, is that if every manufacturer made sure they did an official integration for Home Assistant, their product would be picked by the people who have Home Assistant, or would at least be a very high consideration. Because what happens currently is you have a load of people who you know, they're just guys who code, and they code an unofficial module, and then the problem with that, it doesn't quite work right, or it needs a lot of updates, or it crashes and things like that, where like the manufacturers that have integrated well with Home Assistant, they're the manufacturers whose products are selling. Yeah. So, you know, and some of those people have been like Tardo and like Residio have an official integration, you know, and those thermostats, the people considering getting thermostats or a sensor, or, you know, like Shelly is a massive brand, and they've pretty much built themselves up by being Home Assistant compatible. So it's just products like that. And especially with heat pumps, if they had like an official integration with Home Assistant, so more people would probably consider that heat pump.
Home Assistant has taken off so much that there are now manufacturers that are supporting and actually providing the guidelines to build integrations properly, and in some cases writing their own integrations. Yeah, because they're recognizing it's a valuable USP for their products.
So we've done something similar with Passive. Do you know Passive Systems? Yeah, so they've got controllability of our unit, and they can do the PV and stuff. But normally it's just a registration list that you need to give these companies, and they can log in and get the data that they require to be able to manipulate anyway. It's just those licenses that we've got to open up and allow them to have. So, and obviously some companies are a lot more flexible than others. We have got our own one coming out, so whether it's something that we can run side by side.
Yeah, do both. Don't rule out the retrofit market, because the early adopters, the people that have got on board this quickly and have already got PV, battery, EVs. You've now got a minefield of EV chargers that don't integrate with anything. You've got
Yeah.
AC coupled batteries that don't integrate, and solar systems that don't integrate. And so many of the solar companies have tried to do home energy management themselves and done what you're describing now and try to offer all the products and the solutions under one roof. And to be honest, none of them have done it well.
Yeah.
And everybody tends to resort back to things like Home Assistant or workarounds to allow them to integrate properly. Having an open access to your platform, or at least be able to send signals, demand signals or requests, is a benefit.
Yeah.
You don't need complete access. You just need to say, now's good, off you go.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about getting a heat pump? Then don't get caught out by a bad installation. Bodge Buster is your essential guide to asking the right questions and spotting red flags before it's too late. Written from real homeowner experience, this book gives you the knowledge to avoid costly mistakes and make informed decisions. Get Bodge Buster today in print or for Kindle, link in the description. I think the one thing that I've taken away from the last couple of podcasts where we've spoken on the subject is that there's no doubting that PV, heat pumps and batteries all kind of offer their own benefits. I think the true kind of benefits in terms of trying to genuinely drop your costs is basically getting them all to function as efficiently as they can with one another. And there are definitely limitations to that. So if there's somebody that's actually watching this now that is of mediocre tech ability, is Home Assistant even remotely an option for them? Or, is it something that somebody is going to have to really roll up their sleeves, get their kind of coding hats on it and try and figure things out? Is it quite simple? And is there any kind of third-party architecture or hardware that you actually need to kind of facilitate all of this communication?
Yes. You can do all of what you just said. So you can, because it's open, they give you lots of different ways of doing it. You can go and buy your 50 quid Raspberry Pi set up and load it onto an SD card and start completely from scratch. Or you can go and buy their own Raspberry Pi base, but their own Home Assistant computer, if you like. It's a Home Assistant yellow or Home Assistant green. And that's got a couple of different versions of it, but basically that's the calculate, the brainy bit of it. And I'd say Home Assistant has got so much more user-friendly in the last 12 months. You could literally pick it up now and follow their own guides as well as lots of YouTube guides and set yourself up in half an hour. It's probably realistic for a basic system. It depends on how much you're trying to integrate and how much control you want. I mean, we've got everything's integrated, but if you just wanted to have your existing Tardu system and a heat pump, if it was supported, and a solar system or a My Energy system, 15 minutes, you're up and running.
There's no harm in having a heat pump battery and PV anyway, regardless of whether you want to try and optimize it as much as possible to guarantee that you're getting the best use out of it. But even having those three together is massively beneficial for you. It shouldn't be something that you should be scared of 100% if you're a homeowner. It's not something that should be put off by having all these clever controls and optimizing everything. Probably what I'm trying to say is that I wouldn't be worried too much about having it all optimized to like the Richard and Paul level. Excellent if you can, fantastic. But I think as well, there's a huge benefit of having PV batteries and a heat pump to run your house anyway.
I think the biggest thing is they're all electrons. You're creating your own power, you're storing your own power, and you're using your own power to heat your home. You can't do that with gas or oil or LPG, and that's the biggest difference. And that's where the cost savings and the environmental savings come from. As Kevin said, it doesn't matter if you haven't got the integration like we have. You don't really need it. Since batteries now are a lot more affordable and batteries tend to go with a PV system. When I first looked at it, batteries were £10,000-15,000 and not viable. Mm-hmm. So we didn't get a battery when we first fitted our PV. We did that 3 or 4 years later. But having the battery gives you the almost fit and forget. It just sorts itself out. As long as you can control it to tell it what it needs to do to take advantage of your tariff, the rest of it takes care of itself. You just use it.
Does Home Assistant also cover things like your smart plugs, kind of all that the smaller smart stuff within your home? And is it phased about different brands of operating systems? So, for example, if you're Team Apple or Team Android, can you still integrate? If you have got a lot of Apple products, will they work with Home Assistant?
Does everything. Anything you can imagine. I've had something like 10 years old and I've gone, I wonder if there's an integration for that. And I'll look it up and I'll go, oh, it has got an integration. Do you know what I mean? So the best way to kind of integrate is kind of locally. So if it can work locally. So basically anything that's connected to your internet hub, so on your local network, that's the best way of operating it. If it operates through a cloud connection, then it can be a bit slower to update like that, but it literally can do everything. I mean, Paul's probably the same, but I mean, I've got mine doing my lights, my smart plugs, my inverter. It controls my Tesla. It controls everything. Literally, it controls everything. It's amazing what it can do. But like Kevin said, it doesn't have to. You don't have to have that. I was considering actually doubling my battery capacity. So because here we're an all electric house, we haven't got any gas, we haven't got any oil, we haven't got anything else. So what you do find out very quickly is you actually use quite a lot of kilowatt hours a year, a day, and over the course of a year, it's quite significant. So although I've got 27 kilowatt hours of battery storage, I'm probably about half short on like a bad day. We use 50 kilowatt hours easily, easily in our house. I wanted to actually double it, so I was like, right, we'll double it. So I was gonna build myself another battery to double the capacity, but actually just recently I had an email through from a battery supplier, and basically I worked it out. Their new batteries and inverter are that cheap now that it's cheaper to buy it than actually build it, which is the first time I think that's happened. So I'm actually going to buy, which I haven't done before because I normally build everything. I'm actually going to buy another 30 kilowatt hours of battery storage just because it's just a no-brainer. Two things with smaller batteries: one, you haven't got the freedom as much, and two, you end up cycling small batteries a lot, and then their life, the life of that battery doesn't last as long. So if you've got a bigger battery capacity, obviously you're doing less cycling. So if you charge that up, that's a lot of energy to obviously then discharge. So they don't cycle as much and they last longer. I mean, my own battery that I built myself, I built it in 2019 and it's 6 years old, and it's still, I checked the how good the capacity was still, and I've lost about 2% because literally it just solar charges all the time, or it charges off the grid at a very low rate. So the actual reduction in capacity has been minuscule, which is amazing, really. And just shows that if you do invest in like battery storage, that it is going to last probably quite a long time for most people.
So Paul, for somebody that's actually watching this and are getting excited about electrifying, they'll probably get quotes and then they'll start to see that batteries, heat pumps and PV can be quite expensive. So if you were to recommend to them a kind of course of action in terms of if they can't buy everything now, where should they start? And what is the kind of logical way of actually building up their arsenal of renewables?
With the current climate in terms of what things are costing, and depending on their if your boiler's 10, 15 years old and on its last legs, get a heat pump before winter. Do the rest of it next year. If you're building a brand new house and you're trying to spec it for it, then do all of it at the same time. You get your money back. It's just paying up front now to get it back later. PV gives you pretty much a 25-year guaranteed fixed price of electricity from what you're making. It's only going to get better as electricity prices go up. Battery prices are already much less than they were a couple of years ago, and pounds per kilowatts, they're very good value now, and they give you that freedom. As Richard said, you can take advantage of the tariffs. It's really hard to say which is the priority as a simple answer, because it depends so much on circumstances. In our case, we had a perfectly working boiler. We started off on the gateway, as we called it before. We had a government trial and had a Nissan Leaf, so we took part in a vehicle to grid trial. Because of that, we had a really good export rate for all PV, and we thought, oh well, if we get PV, we pay for it now, but we'll pay for it in 2 years because our export rate was so good. So we did that, and that paid for it in 2 years. Then a few years later, battery costs came down, and we started having off-peak tariffs that were half the price of a daytime tariff. Okay, so you get a battery and you can offset your consumption and get your money back that way. And then we got a heat pump because our boiler was knackered, and it made no sense at all to replace like for like. But those three together now, our average electricity bill, that's all we have. We don't have gas anymore. It's about 50 quid a month as an average over the year, which for a 3-bedroom house, an electric car that does about 10,000 miles a year, topping up my plug-in hybrid that's probably covering about 4,000 miles a year of driving, I think it's pretty decent. But that is just taking advantage of tariffs and that storage to offset when you're buying it, and maximising your export to the grid and getting paid 15p a kilowatt.
Are you new to heat pumps and feeding lost? Then From Zero to Heat Pump Hero helps you understand, operate, and optimize your system. No jargon, just simple practical advice from one homeowner to another. Take control of your heating and save energy. Get your copy now. Link in the description. Richard, a question that we get asked quite frequently by homeowners is that a lot of them are wanting to electrify now, and they have got the capital to put in all three PV, batteries, and heat pumps. And the question that we always have is it tidier and neater to have one installer do the lot? Or is it better to kind of cherry pick and get a separate guy to do your heat pump and then maybe a separate guy to do the PV/battery?
That is a good question. Personally, because I always think this about heat pumps as well, right? So if you go with one company that has some sort of incentive to fit those particular products over another, do you actually then get the best products that you kind of want? You know what I mean? So if someone's got an association with a particular heat pump brand, or someone's got a particular association with a particular, solar PV brand, and someone's got a particular for, maybe, Tesla battery storage instead of the others, then I think you just got to be a little bit careful about maybe just getting one person to do that, unless they're quite flexible on what equipment they will fit for you. So you can have your own input, because the only thing I'd really implore homeowners to do is, if you want that, make sure you do your research really well up front. For your heat pumps, for instance, actually have a look at their performance at like -3. Yeah, because that's really important. Because if you have someone who prefers one particular brand of heat pumps and their performance at -3 is like a cop of 2, and there's another heat pump brand that has a cop of 3.5, then you know what I mean? But the installer likes the brand that's got a cop of 2.5. You might end up with a heat pump that's not quite as efficient, because they've decided that's the brand that they like and they're used to, And so I would say maybe if someone can do the package and they're willing to, install the heat pump you want and the solar PV you want and the battery storage you want, then maybe go for them. But otherwise, if they've got their own package that they want to provide and they want to give you, maybe not go with that person. Definitely do your research, because there's a big variation in heat pump efficiency, especially when they go through the temperature bands, so just be very careful what you're buying. And like with PV, the performance changes on the panel. So someone might be profiting off your investment. So, they might be buying a cheaper PV panel, which has a lower percentage or of efficiency, because they make more money. So you have always got to be a little bit careful. I mean, typically, like my business, we generally go for the best stuff. Do you know what I mean? We try and supply the best stuff, and we try not to skimp, because we don't sell cheap, unfortunately. So that we do lose a bit of market, but we generally like sell the best stuff, or we give the best advice, and we try and go down that sort of route rather than lining pockets, which I know that's not everyone, but you're certainly more at risk if you turn around and say, well, I got 40 grand to spend. Spend it for me. They'll spend it and make as much profit as they can out of that 40 grand, won't they? So, it's definitely safe from that perspective. Like, make sure you get what you want, get the heat pump you want, the PV and the batteries you want.
I suppose staggering it, Paul, is a lot easier, because then you can kind of pick and choose as you get to each stage. I assume that you would have had different people install your heat pump than they did your PV, that did your battery.
So, I mean, being a DIYer like Richard there as well, I had my solar PV fitted just during when people were allowed to move again during COVID. I'm EV battery trained anyway, high voltage trained. So I thought, I was bored, so I did the Solar Edge training and became accredited. I bought the Solar Edge battery when it first came out and fitted the Solar Edge battery, because it's a DC battery, so there's no conversion from DC to AC and back to DC again when you're using it with solar, which I think I like it. It's a good product. It was overpriced when it came out, but it's now at a sensible price compared to other brands. And then the heat pump, I fitted it as part of a project I was doing with one of my customers who's MCS accredited. So I did the donkey work, the heavy lifting, with the aim to try and do it as minimal impact to the house as possible. So basically keep it as close to as it was before the heat pump. So I refitted hot water storage in the airing cupboard that hadn't had a cylinder for 25 years, and ended up using a sun amp as a solution rather than losing loft space or covered space, which is brilliant. Some people don't like them because of the efficiency slight difference in efficiency, I think it's a brilliant product. Fitted the heat pump, like I said, myself, but had it all checked over and final commission done by my customer. And it's been great. I think if I was going back now and I had a big wallet full of money and said, what would I do? I'd gladly have the right people do the right job. And some companies can offer all those services. And as Richard said, give you all the choices you might want. Some companies specialize in what they do. And I think using people who do their thing well and stick to it, there's a lot to be said for that. Sometimes the people that try and do everything aren't the best at everything. They're good at everything. And if you want the best heat pump installer and maybe the best solar PV installer. I would say solar and batteries, it would make sense to do the two together, because otherwise you're duplicating a lot of the work, which would probably add cost to it long term. So if you're going to do PV, I'd say do battery at the same time. But I wouldn't be too fussed about having a different installer for a heat pump as I would for the solar and PV.
So how are you guys bridging that, Kevin? Because you obviously do the full range of products. How are you making sure that your installers are fully trained, and are they trained to do the full range of products?
Yeah, they are. So I'd go against what those two have said, and I would just get one person that fitted Clavette, and that was it. So Mars, I'm always honest. I think you should always get minimum of 3 quotations for everything. You welcome these people in your home. They're not going to be there for 5-10 minutes. They're going to be there for 2 or 3 days in some cases, maybe longer. So you need to feel comfortable with them, not be pushed into a hard sale. We touched on this in the last one. I would never buy from someone that said sign here before they left your house. It just doesn't work for me. So make sure you're comfortable with the installer. Make sure they take on board your comments. It's your system at the end of the day. You've got to live with it. You've got to be comfortable with it. You need someone that's definitely accredited or done manufacturer's training to be fitting the stuff. So I'd definitely look at people that have got the accreditations or the preferred installers or fitters for the manufacturers for sure. You know that they've done the course. You know that they've potentially even read the manual, which would be good. So you should be getting the best installation that they can.
If you've got any questions about heat pumps, then you need to join the Renewable Heating Hub forums. You can connect with other homeowners, share experiences, and get advice on heat pumps and renewables. Sign up today and be a part of the conversation. Link in the description. So that's a wrap for another episode of Homeowners Q&A. A huge thank you to our panel, Paul, Richard, and Kevin, for sharing their expertise and knowledge. And of course, thank you to Egg for sponsoring this episode and supporting conversations that help homeowners make smarter, greener choices. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe and share. Until next time, stay warm, stay green, stay tuned. Goodbye. He is running so far behind. His internet connection must be really slow. It's only at 30% up.
Hello.
How's mine this week?
Pretty slow, 52.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're on Starlink, so that's understandable.
I'm on Starlink in a shed in the bottom of the garden with Wi-Fi connected. It's a link of a link of a link. I think it's the 3 branches down of the Wi-Fi. Before I had Starlink, that you were taking a mick out of, I had our standard BT copper. We're relatively rural, and the wires are literally they're buried in mud. And every time it rains and the ground gets really wet, the connection drops. And I had all my updates and all my backups that are scheduled haven't completed since January. So when Starlink said, "Oh, by the way, we're now available in your area," after a big long period where it wasn't available,
Jumped on it.
And it's been really good, to be fair.
Yeah, mine's been good too. So.
Oh, you're also on Starlink?
Yeah, we're on Starlink here. Yeah, because we've got the same problem. We're like a mile away from the exchange on copper connection. So it was like I think the maximum we've had is like 8 meg. So when we couldn't get any more than that. So like I said, when Starlink was available, we jumped on that. So I've actually got full fibre here now. It's going in at the end of the month. So I can't wait for that. That'll be really good.
Fibre was a game changer for us because we were on copper and we got fibre about a year ago, and it used to take me 2 days to upload like an 8 gig file to YouTube. Now it takes 20 minutes and it's just bang. Welcome back, Kevin.